All right, we're good to go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mandy Lloyd, and I'm on the line with Ronald Page. He is running for the Senate seat 29 for Chesterfield, Darlington, Lee, and Marlboro area. He's running against the incumbent, Gerald Malloy. How are you doing today, Ronald?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your platform.
Sure. I'm a first responder for the city of Darlington currently, and formerly I was a substitute for the Darlington County School District. The three areas that I'm most concerned about are education, employment, and infrastructure. To improve education, I would work with Education Committee and the State Superintendent, Molly Spearman, and Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett to ensure our teachers have the tools, classroom control, and time to teach our children to become employable citizens. We need to stop demonizing trade schools, which guide students into high-paying, shovel-ready jobs instead of only promoting four-year degrees, which are often more costly and not always in demand. I believe this would result in students entering the workforce faster, reducing student loan debt, generating tax dollars, and creating a skilled labor base to maintain our roads, bridges, and power grid.
Well, thank you so much. That sounds awesome. It sounds like you're a huge component of education, and you had a lot of experience as a substitute from a different standpoint, because a substitute, you have to have a whole nother respect for the substitute population, because that doesn't get a whole lot of respect from your student population, especially in the high school levels. So what is your opinion on the state of our education system in South Carolina right now?
Well, I have some concerns. One thing it's hard for me to wrap my mind around how whenever there's an issue with education, we tend to leave the teachers out, as if they don't know what the issues are when they're the tip of the spear with education in South Carolina. I've also been doing some research on the district itself. Chesterfield, for 2013 data for Chesterfield, Darlington, Lee, and Marlboro County, they from age 25 and older at the time the study was done, from less than ninth grade to high school, the graduation, the students who have diplomas, for Chesterfield, 25% do not. Darlington, 21% do not. It's almost 30% in Lee County, and it is 30% in Marlboro County, and that's 9th to 12th grade, no diploma, or less than 9th grade. And what a lot of people don't tend to realize is that the most important, the most powerful demographic in our society is the citizen, because they make up our juries. So when we have educated citizens, we have better juries, and we have a better administration of justice in the state. So it's very important that we get students not only prepared for the workforce, but ready for life outside of school. If they can't make it in high school, there's a trend that students that can't make it in high school tend to end up potentially looking at, incarceration. And then we have our recidivism rate that we have. But there's a lot of people in the state doing great things with education for high risk repeat offenders. So that's another thing we definitely need to stay focused on, is making sure that if we can't help them, if we can't catch them when they're in high school, when they start getting into the prison system, that we give them the tools they need to stay employed in the workforce.
Absolutely. One of the things that always pops in my mind is, if you don't want to pay for them while they're teenagers, you're definitely going to be paying for them if they're not able to work, or if they're incarcerated. You're going to still be paying for them. So why don't we pay for them to get them out, get them educated and working for the system and becoming productive citizens? Absolutely.
Exactly.
I know I teach in a rural district, and one of the things that I pride myself on with the district is how well our CAPE programs are. We produce all of these wonderful students who walk right out of our school and into these awesome programs in welding and building and construction and automotive repair and all these great jobs that we don't see enough of our students going into. There's this fear about it's got to be college, it's got to be college, it's got to be college. But really and truly, it doesn't have to be. We have all these great high-paying jobs that you don't have to go to these big universities to do. And so we definitely need to keep pushing these kids to follow a path that works for them and not downgrade the people who are going to these technical schools or to these trade schools and learning these wonderful skills. And to be quite honest, making a lot of money for many of them. So you can't just talk down about that. We don't want to push everybody to Clemson and Carolina. We want to push these kids out to getting great jobs, no matter what they are.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely. So if you're elected, what steps would you take to improve our public education system?
Well, obviously, I would work with the people who know the most about the issues, and that would be obviously working with the state superintendent and groups that are in communication with the teachers and making sure that the issues that the teachers are having with the schools or within the, like, for example, if you don't talk to a teacher, you'll never know what the problems are. So when they tell you that they're focusing too much time on doing paperwork than they are actually teaching, and that's a problem that we need to look at. And obviously, I would have to work with the education committee and the finance committee to resolve those issues because, I'm only one person. I can't make any promises about I'm going to solve that issue when there's a whole group of people involved in making sure that that solution, is reached.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love that you said is that you're going to be talking with the people who are really invested in the education component, including the teachers. One of the things that we feel in my profession is that they're not asking us what we're experiencing. They're just assuming what we're experiencing rather than talking to a lot of us. And that hopefully will change after this pandemic. But it has not been that trend for years. It's always been people making decisions for us, but never talking to us or allowing us to speak on the issues that we see with the children that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So that would be wonderful if you could do that for us.
I mean, historically, it's as if that they felt like teachers weren't working, like they weren't doing their job. So they had to create standardized testing. And now there's issues with that. So it's, where does it stop? If we don't prioritize the teachers and make an effort to reach out to them and understand what the issues are, we really aren't helping the educational system.
Absolutely. And since you brought up testing, with the pandemic, we were able to suspend state testing for this year. So what are your thoughts on the never-ending state testing that we've been given over the past few years? If we can continue to teach the children as we are seeing across the state and the children are still learning, what are your thoughts on these assessments?
I mean, I hate to say that I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I don't think anybody really does. And people who say they do aren't really being honest about the situation. So I would have to study it and reach out to those who know more than me and learn and see what the options for the solutions are, and then talk to the various committees that are responsible for resolving those issues and, working together as a team, reach a consensus on, what the solution ought to be.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I know I hear from a lot of teachers is that testing needs to happen every now and then. That is something that you can't get away from. You have to do testing to get into certain trade schools, for example. So, you need to get used to those types of assessments. But I don't know about the frequency that we have now. I don't know where that's being helpful to the kids. If we're testing them monthly or yearly or semester by semester, by, and it just depends. And one of the things as a high school teacher that I try to bring up with as many people as possible is with a state test that we're given to our students, they don't ever tell us in South Carolina where we went wrong. They just say your kids, 30% of your kids failed this test. And we'll say, okay, so why? What did they miss? Tell me what I need to do better. And they will never release that information to us. But other states do. And so we look awful because we're not growing kids. Our numbers are at 48 out of the 50 states. But they never tell us where our shortcomings are so that we can improve. And that's very frustrating.
Well, one of the things that's not really fair is to blame teachers for a parent's lack of responsibility in encouraging their students to want to learn, and then having students that don't want to learn in the classroom and expecting them to succeed. And I don't think that's very fair to the teachers.
Absolutely. I mean, you're 100% correct on that. And even if we take out that factor of, parent responsibility, because families just aren't what they used to be. I mean, they're not, this isn't the 50s and 60s anymore. So if we take that dynamic and just separate it all out, we still could be great teachers without that dynamic if we were given more information on how to get better. Right. And I would love for the family dynamic to come back, but I just don't think it ever will. And so if you could inform us as to where we can improve upon, I think we could do better, and maybe we wouldn't be 48th or 47th in the nation, because we've got some really smart kids and really great people in this state. I love this state. But when you compare our state to other states, the reason we look so bad is because our standards for our students are really, really high compared to the standards of other states. And so we set a goal that many students we know will not get. But if you look at the goals of other states, we far surpass those states in their goals, but we can't meet our goal because we set it so high, but it makes us look bad. And that's very disappointing.
Yeah. Even though the state has the minimally adequate, I think it's the way it's worded. I've never met a teacher who made a minimally adequate effort to teach a child. It's always been above and beyond. So I have a great respect for our teachers.
Thank you so much. And I hope that continues, because for SC for ED, what we really want to push is every child deserves a highly qualified teacher in that classroom. They deserve a teacher who's great, and they deserve to keep that teacher. And we don't want to run these great teachers out, because we all know if we run off the good teachers, look around and see what you're left with. You don't have a whole lot good coming in if you're going to run off the great teachers that we've had for a long time. And so we want to keep those in as much as possible. So how would you address the funding piece in public education?
Well, obviously, as a senator, okay, I would be assigned to one of 5 committees. And regardless of what my committee assignments are, I would be responsible for addressing this issue with the finance committee, because they're the ones that are responsible for allocating funding. So obviously I would have to start there. It's my hope that if we get more students involved, sending them to jobs that are already ready to pay them a good salary, and not just send them off to a 4-year university where, some degrees, let's be honest, aren't worth the paper they're written on. I mean, you get a degree in an area that's not in demand, you're stuck with over $100,000 in debt. I mean, that's not doing anybody any good. But if we get our students, in 2 years, they're already out in society, got a great income. If you're a welder, you might make 50 to 100 grand, depending on if you're underwater or not. And I think that, that'll generate some tax revenue in the short term, instead of putting them in 4-year schools and they get degrees that they can't pay back the loans on.
100%. I think it would be great for us to really work on some of that funding, especially since our funding formula hasn't been revisited since the 1970s. And school in the 1970s is not the same as what we have in 2020. We just don't have the same needs. We don't have the same tax setups, tax bases. You know, what used to be thriving areas are not thriving areas anymore. So we have a lot of places where mills have shut down, and that, you know, those schools were really dependent on the money that those industries brought in, and a lot of those industries we don't have anymore. And that would be, it would be great for us to maybe redo some of that funding so that we have a little bit better funding in those rural areas.
Well, I agree 100%, but one of the issues we have now is we don't know what industries we've lost because of this COVID thing. So, you know, what's our fiscal year look like year to date? I mean, we don't know who's still going to be around, or what jobs or what businesses are still going to be in business. And so we're definitely going to have to look and reevaluate some things going into the next fiscal year.
Yes, sir. And it's been scary, I know. So what do you feel is the top issue surrounding education in South Carolina? If you were to pick a top one or top three, what would be the top issues for you in South Carolina as far as public education is concerned?
I would say probably retention of teachers has been a pretty major issue, and some of that relates to funding, but I've read some articles, and there's some other issues involved that we definitely need to address as far as retention of teachers, and especially rural school districts. You know, there's basically everything is on the table at this point for discussion and analyzing. I mean, making sure we have teachers who are ready to join the teacher workforce, making sure we retain those teachers. And, you know, everything's kind of piggybacking off of everything else. So we definitely need to look at how we can make education better for the teachers, for the students.
Yes, sir. I know retention is one of the things that has such a monumental effect on so many other things. If you can retain teachers, you have highly qualified teachers, and you don't have to pay money to keep training all of these new teachers coming in. So there's money saved there, but you also have smaller class size, which means every child has more access to that teacher and can have a better learning experience and can grow and be better, which could lead to better test scores and better graduation rates and a better look overall on our school and states schools populations. So it's a huge factor that we need to truly consider.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to speak on regarding your platform or education itself?
I will say in closing that my goal is to work hard to build relationships with community leaders, colleagues, and assigned committees to solve problems that impact our district and our state. I am a team player, and I believe we are all in this together. I do not believe in seeking credit for problems that my colleagues and I all bear responsibility for solving that impact the lives of all South Carolinians and citizens in the District 29.
Well, thank you so much. Again, for those of you who are watching, this is Ronald Page. He is running in the primary against Gerald Malloy for seat 29 in the Senate. And we wish you the best of luck in the June primary, Mr. Page, and I appreciate you talking with us this evening.
I have a primary against another Republican, and the general election is in November, just to clarify. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry we were talking over each other. Yes, you are going against J.D. Chaplin in the primaries, and then from there it would be in the November election against Gerald Malloy. Thank you for correcting me on that one. I appreciate it. Too many people.
It's okay.
Well, thank you so much, and we again wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful and safe afternoon.
I hope you do too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.